You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Menkels.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Whenever you're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report, we are so happy to have you with us. Today is November 30th, 2024. It's a Saturday, so it's another day for the Central Indiana Sports Report. Coming up, we will hear from Frankton head coach Brent Brobston on Saturday's showdown against rival Lapel. Oak Hill head coach Kevin Renbarger about Oak Hill's challenge at home against Manchester. The Action Sports Network's Grant Shouse will preview Marion-New Castle. And the Herald Bulletin's Rob Hunt talks about a fantastic start to the season in Madison County and a big Saturday with 3 in-county matchups. We have a boys basketball scoreboard every day of the week except for Mondays. And on Mondays, we have our week in review where we recap all 31 local teams in Blackford, Delaware, Grant, Howard, Madison, Tipton, and northern Madison counties. So I have podcasted approximately 168 hours this week, and I need to finish my card game with my mother. And I'm visiting my father this afternoon, so I went over these games a little bit faster than I normally would. Plus, I previewed them on Friday Central Indiana Sports Report, so please forgive the brevity. We start with Friday's only local game. It didn't look good for Elwood in the fourth quarter at home. The Panthers trailed by 5 points late in the contest, but outscored visiting Hamilton 13-1 down the stretch for their first win of the year. Senior Jaden Mullins had a double-double of 15 points and 10 rebounds, and his defense down the stretch made a big difference in the outcome. Corbin Level and Braden Etchison scored 6 points apiece, and Ethan Cassis finished with 5 for the Panthers, who go to Anderson Prep on Saturday. The Anderson Prep Jets opened their season with a big 65-62 win over Alexandria. Elwood beat the Jets 45-35 in Elwood last season to improve to 2-1. Now to our Saturday previews. All 13 games. The junior varsity starts at 6 with the varsity to follow. Rivals Frankton-Lapel start their season Saturday at Lapel. It's the first of 3 potential meetings between the teams this season. The Eagles and Bulldogs split last year with Frankton winning in the regular season in overtime, and the Bulldogs defeating the Eagles 58-42 in the opening round of the Madison County Tournament. Here's Frankton head coach Brent Brobston to tell you more about the Frankton-Lapel rivalry game.
Coach, we just did our CIC season preview, and you talked about your team's goals. Where on your list of goals is beating Lapel?
Well, you know, it's a rivalry game, so it's always an important game when you play it each year, and there's a little bit of rivalry that goes into it, which is pretty cool for the kids on both ends. And I've got a ton of respect for Kevin Cherry. He's a great coach. He's done a fantastic job at Madison Grant when he was there, and he's done a great job at Lapel since he's been there. So he's got a very good basketball mind, and he'll have his program ready to play. So I just have a lot of respect for the Lapel program. Over the years of coaching and being here for 17 years, it's been a battle every time you go in there, and they've had great players and good coaches and a good program. So if you can go in there and win, it's obviously a great win for your program. And no matter what happens, I know for us, it'll be a great learning experience being our first game.
And speaking of great players, they have some, right?
Absolutely. The Judge kids are seniors now. Both are very strong and physical, and they're collegiate level players, and they'll play at the next level. And Devin Craig, their point guard's coming off a really good football season for them and for him, and he's very talented in basketball and football. So, and then they've got supporting cast around them. The Luke Jones kid is going to be a junior now, playing quite a bit for him. Quinn Wilkins, who's starting guard for them as well, will be a tough handle for everybody. And they've got a lot of ability and a lot of talent. And like I said, with a good coach and a good program. So it'll be a very difficult test. It's one that we look forward to every year. Just, I think it tells you where you're at early and how much work you got to do. And last year we were able to get them, in this game early, and than they got us in the county. So it's just kind of a standard to see where you're at and where you are with your program. But I really believe that Lapel is a top 10 2A team and maybe even higher than that. And this will give us a good judgment where we're at and how much better we need to get.
And two of your goals were to win county and sectional, so that's a team this year could be standing in the way of both of them. So
yeah, you're exactly right. That's a definite possibility. And like I said, being the first game, I really like that being there just so we can kind of judge and see where we're at. And our goal is to be playing our best basketball come sectional time. And there's been many times that we've lost to Lapel, and then we've been able to beat them, be fortunate enough to beat them in the sectional or beat them later in the year. Trying to get better and be there when we get to that. And there's been times we've beat them or they beat us in the sectional. So it's kind of gone back and forth. So, but it'll be a great feedback for us early in the season. And there's no meaning to this game in terms of your conference, your county, or your sectional really at this time. So I think that alone is a good thing because it's just a first game, kind of getting out there and playing and seeing where you're at and where you can get better and what's your deficiencies. And if we can take that, they'll expose us in some areas and hopefully we can expose them in some areas, but it'll give us some stuff to look at and see and get better at.
Pendleton goes to Wapahani to continue its rough stretch of schedule to start the season. The Arabians lost their opener 65-52 at home against Anderson and now go to Selma to face reigning semi-state champion Wapahani. The Raiders lost their top two players from last year but have plenty of talent returning and opened the season with a 51-27 trouncing of Muncie Central, in which they scored the game's first 22 points. Wapahani has beaten the Arabians each of the last 2 years. Class A state championship contender Liberty Christian and Class 4A state championship contender Anderson meet Saturday at Highland. As I just said, Anderson beat Pendleton earlier this week by 15 points, and the reigning regional champion Lions outscored Phelan Academy 92-77. A reminder, Rob Hunt is coming up soon. He'll talk about Frankton-Lapel, Pendleton Wapahani, Anderson Liberty Christian, and Alexandria Westell. Westell was impressive in its opener, a 12-point road win at Cambridge City. The Warriors host Alexandria on Saturday after the Tigers' 3-point loss to APA in their opener. Westell won by 22 last year at Alexandria. Expect a bounce-back season at Madison Grant. The Argyles went 6-17 last year, but it was a competitive 6-17. They weren't far off from being above 500 and returned some athletic and talented seniors and some underclassmen with some serious potential. The Argyles start their season Saturday evening at home against Wabash. The Apaches won 21 games last year and beat Madison Grant by 15. They opened their season with a 59-45 home loss to Oak Hill. Speaking of the Golden Eagles, they look to make it 2-0 against Manchester on Saturday. They started by beating Wabash behind 33 points from junior star point guard Jace Tonigal. The Squires were 18-5 last year and expect to be among the state's top 2A teams this year. It is their season opener. I spoke with Oak Hill head coach Kevin Renbarger about the challenge that Manchester poses. I asked him how he felt about his team's performance in the season opener against Wabash.
Well, I thought defensively we were pretty solid. I think our press, our offense kind of lagged a little bit, and our transition and press helped us in regards to some scoring until we could, get our feet underneath us in regards to some half-court offense. So, full court pressure really bothered Wabash quite a bit. And then I thought we were able to settle in the half court and take away some, easy perimeter passes and some things that they wanted to do offensively. So, that side of the ball I was rather pleased with.
another big test on Saturday. Very good Manchester team. Tell us what you're up against on Saturday, Coach.
Yeah, I kind of hate to put the whammy on Coach Henson, but Manchester is a team that would have all of the pieces to make a long, deep state run. They've had They've got a legitimate post player who is signed to play at Grace, I believe, and Gavin Betton. He's 6'7", been starting for 4 years. They've got a point guard who's also been starting for 4 years, and Ethan Hendricks, and then a lot of complementary players and 7 seniors. And so, as I said, for 2A basketball, if you've got a point guard that can control the floor and a dominant post player as they do, you've got an experience. You've got pieces that, you need to make a good long run. And this team is definitely ready for that. They've been gearing for this for 4 years now, and this is their year. So it'll be a pretty strong test. It'll, no disrespect to Wabash, but it will be a bump up. As I said, this will probably be one of the tougher 2 or 3 teams that we face on our entire schedule all year.
Good team to play early in the year, right?
Yeah, it's not indifferent than what we did with Mechanical last year. Mechanical is a very, very good basketball team. They came in, and actually we went over there and they smacked us in the mouth pretty good. They were in our sectional, and we were able to make some adjustments and come back and beat them in sectional play. This is Manchester's first game, and although we've seen them on film from last year, some of their games late, and we saw also, what they did with us last year. You just never know what a coach may try to employ that is different from one year to the next, and so there is that kind of variable. But it is they're a new sectional opponent. They're probably easily the runaway favorite for our sectional, and so to get a good look at them this year and then be able to turn around and kind of watch them progress over the course of the year and know what we did against them and be able to employ some adjustments if we get to face them again, I think is always a good thing.
Eastbrook also kicks off its season at Northfield. The Panthers went 7-17 last year and turned to former girls head coach Jeff Liddick, who is now coaching the boys. They have 3 very good players returning: senior Draven Collins, junior Bodie Howell, and sophomore Jaden Younts. So it should be a very good season at Eastbrook. The Norse won at Eastbrook last year to start the season. They opened this season with an 18-point loss at Huntington North. Tim Jones scored 31 points to help Marion to a season-opening 19-point win at Mississinewa. Now the Giants look to go 2-0 when they visit the famed Newcastle Chrysler Arena on Saturday. Newcastle also won its opener 73-38 over Blue River. They were 12-12 a year ago, including an 11-point loss at Marion. Here is the Action Sports Network Grant Shouse with a preview.
Welcome back to the Central Indiana Sports Report. Grant Shouse of the Action Sports Network. Grant is going to be at Newcastle on Saturday, one of the best venues in America, and to see 2 of the proudest programs in Indiana, Marion at Newcastle. What are you expecting to see, Grant?
Well, I mean, it's a matchup of 2 traditional programs in Indiana high school basketball, 2 of the flagship traditional programs. When you think about Indiana high school basketball, a lot of people think about New. It's a historical, traditional matchup. Two teams from the old North Central Conference getting back together. I'm anticipating what should be a competitive game. Marion took care of Mississinewa by about 19 or 20 points. Come on, and by about 19 or 20 points on Wednesday night. So this is the Marion team that lost Jamin Townsend, who was, probably an Indiana All-Star at one point, and he transferred to go to a prep school, I think, up in Connecticut. And so they lost him, but they still return a lot. Tim Jones, their point guard, had 31 points on Wednesday night. Logan Barnes is another key contributor for them. As for Newcastle, I really don't know personnel-wise who they have. They won their first game against Blue River by about 25 or 30. So this is a Newcastle team that's incredibly well coached. I can tell you that, with Daniel Cox, who's been there for 7 or 8 years now. And Newcastle, just a traditional good program. Like you mentioned, one of the best venues in the state, 9,000 seat gymnasium, the largest gym in the country. So it's going to be a fun one. I'm really looking forward to it due to the fact calling a game there at Newcastle, which I've never had the opportunity to do. I've been to tons of games there, but I've never called a game. So this will be a first for me from a broadcaster standpoint. But I think it's going to be a fun game on Saturday night. It's going to be a measuring stick for both teams. Finally playing a school kind of close to their size. I know Marion's 3A. They played 3A Mississinawa, but it's going to be, their first test as going up against a bigger school like New Castle.
It should be another good year for Delta. On Saturday, of course, we'll know more about the reigning regional champions as they take the court for the first time when they host Connorsville. Delta lost its top 3 scorers from last year's team, but should return plenty of talent to go after the program's 14th sectional championship and 4th in the last 5 years. The Eagles have also won back-to-back regional championships. They open at home against Connorsville, who they beat by 11 points in Connorsville last season. The Spartans were 6-20 last year. Yorktown has had 5 straight seasons of at least 10 wins, and there's no reason to believe this will not be the 6th. The Tigers started their season with a 60-51 win over Hagerstown, behind 17 points from junior Jabin Barnes, 13 from senior Ephraim Doherty, and 12 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 steals from senior Austin Cates. Greensburg is a Southern powerhouse with 16 straight seasons of at least 15 wins, including 3A state championships in 2013 and 2014. The Pirates were 18-8 last year and began this season with a 54-47 win over North Decatur. Sheridan looks to go 2-0 for the first time since 2018 when the Blackhawks go to Southmont for their first road game Saturday. Sheridan started with a high-scoring 89-47 win over Cowan. Senior forward Damon Winston dominated with 24 points, 12 rebounds, and 8 assists in the win. He was one of 5 Blackhawks in double figures. Southmont beat North Putnam 79-48 to start its season. The Mounties had 4 in double figures, led by senior Aaron McMasters, who finished with 18 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and a pair of steals. Sheridan beat the Mounties by 20 points last year. Western goes to Monticello in search of its first win Saturday. The Panthers took a 98-56 loss to Kokomo in the season opener and now face a Twin Lake team that started its season with a 60-45 win over Winnemac. The Indians beat Western in 3 overtimes last year. That game was also played at Monticello. Northwestern makes its Three Rivers Conference debut on Saturday at Lewis Cass after opening the season with a 30-32 win over Pioneer. Cass was beaten 44-33 in their debut at home against Carroll, and Cass went 9-14 last year. Cowan allowed Sheridan to shoot 61% from the floor in the Blackhawks season opener against Sheridan, who are also the Blackhawks. Cowan was also out-rebounded by Sheridan 33-18 and turned the ball over 13 times and forced just 1 from Sheridan. Hagerstown is the Tigers and come to Cowan on Saturday after taking competitive losses Tuesday and Wednesday against Franklin County and Yorktown. Senior Kagan Kendall had 37 points, 14 rebounds, 4 steals, and 4 assists through 2 games for Hagerstown. Please stay tuned for Rob Hunt of the Herald Bulletin.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengel.
Out here today at Elwood High School, about to watch the Elwood Panthers and the Hamilton Marines. I love the name of the, by the way, very cool logo as well. They might not be very good at basketball, but they are good at designing logos at the very least. And we are here to talk about Madison County basketball. Already a big weekend coming up. We've got the rivalry between Frankton-Lapel, 2 very good programs that expect to have good years. Anderson versus Liberty Christian, 2 very good programs expecting to have special years. And then we have Elwood and Anderson Prep.
Elwood plays APA tomorrow.
And you got Alexandria Westell and Madison Grand opens their season. Just here to talk a little bit of Madison County basketball. Looks like it's going to be just a fantastic year.
It's already been a fantastic week. We had the Anderson-Pendleton game tipped off the season, and Liberty won big in their opener, so here we are ready for the weekend. We're going to go watch Elwood boys open their home opener tonight. They already played on the road the other night, but Thanksgiving week, great food, great basketball. It's a fun time to be in Indiana.
Let's start with Frankton and Lapel. I think if you were evaluating it like I am, from someone who's never seen any of the teams, but just looking at what they have back, it looks like Lapel might be the team around here to beat. That's not in the city of Anderson. So I'm talking about northern Madison County. Looks like they might be the better of the two at this point.
And you start with the Judge twins. Those guys back for their senior year. They've both had really great careers. Brody might hit 1,000 points for his career tomorrow if he has a big game. Bodie will not be far behind here in a few weeks, but. They're a talented team. They've got a good backcourt. Devin Craig is the point guard. And
same quarterback as the football team.
Yeah, he's turned in his football and now he's ready to run the point. They're a talented team. They've got athletic depth. And I never write off Frankton. Maybe on paper Lapel has more back, but Frankton is so well coached. They run a system that works. And Joey Wright is as good a point guard as we've got in the county, and he can score from that position as well. Brady Carmack, we know from football, he's an athletic player that can play the forward position for them. They should be solid.
I talked to Brent Brobston about the game today. He said that it's not that big of a deal of a game because it's the first game of the year, and that if they play him in the county or the sectional, it will be a bigger deal. Do you believe him?
I heard the same kind of stuff from Mickey Hosier before his girls' team played Lapel the other night, and let me tell you, that was a big deal. It's Frankton-Lapel. Maybe it's a bigger deal with the kids and the fans than it is for the coaches. The coaches understand it's one game. I remember a couple times this opener back in the Jimmy Howell days. I remember one year they actually ran Frankton out of the gym in the opener. But by the end of the year in sectional, it ended up being like a 3-point game. It was an absolute classic. So, in the grand scheme of things, no, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, this doesn't make or break your season. It's not a conference game. It's not a county tournament game. But there's some bragging rights. I mean, these kids are going to be fired up for that one. I would expect good crowds, some loud fans, and two pretty talented teams going at it. And
they are both in the same sectional again.
They are back in the same sectional. They are, that's great. Having Frankton up at 3A the last couple of years was kind of a bummer. It was kind of tough on Frankton a little bit because they were playing against some bigger schools. I know they were 3A, but the other 3A schools were bigger. And then it's just fun. I mean, having those two in the same sectional, and there have been so many great games between those two teams in the postseason.
That entire field, though. Yeah, now it's just it makes that field great for us.
Yeah, Elwood's in there too. I mean, that makes it a third county team, and then they've got the rivalry with Tipton, who's maybe the monster in that sectional, along with Lapel and Frankton. It's an interesting sectional field later in the year, and we'll go have some fun on a Saturday night and see what happens.
We're about to see Elwood, and this will run after we see them, but let's talk a little bit about APA.
Well, in seeing them from last year, and they've got quite a few of those pieces back. It starts with Lincoln Fathauer, and he's the coach's son, and what he can do offensively. I think he scored 20 the other night. Really nice season opening win against Alexandria, a team that's kind of had their number over the years, but now they've beaten Alexandria 2 years in a row. Cameron Anderson is a really fun player to watch. He's athletic, he's fast, he's strong, he can shoot it. He's a great distributor of the ball. He can do a lot of things. He's not a super tall kid. He plays more of a 1 or 2, but he's strong enough where he can go inside and do something inside. So it'll be interesting to see how APA does in that game tomorrow. I haven't seen Elwood yet, so I'm not sure how that matches up, but APA could be an interesting team. Their girls' team is already going to be interesting, especially when we get down toward that post.
6-3, right?
6-3, and they appear to be. I'm going to go see them for the first time actually tomorrow in the morning. They play Liberty. Really, when you look at it, that girls' team is the prohibitive favorite in that sectional. So it could be a historic season for the Jets, especially on the girls' side.
And Alexandria looking to bounce back against Westdale. It looks, you would think that they would be able to do that, but Westdale beat them pretty good last year as well. Maybe it's just the team that gets off to slow starts.
Yeah, don't underestimate that rivalry either. It's State Road 28. They're right down the road from each other, and their school districts kind of border on one another. So there's some rivalry going on there too. And Coach Carroll, I know he couldn't not have been happy with leaving the hangar the other night with the loss, and we'll see if I'm sure he'll have those guys ready to play tomorrow. That'll be a tough one. Well behind, pretty impressed. They got off to, I think they scored the first 22 points of that game against Muncie Central, and Pendleton will be well served to avoid that kind of start. Evan Mazingo had a nice game the other night. He's a really good senior guard for Pendletonites, so they played tough. I mean, they showed some grit and determination. They were not going to get run out of the gym.
It's a really good way to start your season, though, especially games that you know you're going to be competitive in against teams that you're going to grow against.
Yeah, I mean, they open with Anderson. They play Wapahani. They're going to play, I believe, Westfield next week is the next game. I think I jumped the gun on that, what their matchup is. But I think, and I don't remember beyond that, but I know I looked at their schedule in the first 6 games. They could play really well and be 0-6. I mean, that's how tough their schedule is. So, but that will make them better later in the year.
And that conference is going to be, you're talking about that sectional, but that conference is going to be.
That sectional is basically that conference for the most part. I mean, Mount Vernon, New Pal, Greenfield, Pendleton. It's such, you got a long drive against Shelbyville maybe, and so it's a tough conference. Shenandoah will be hosting Blue River, or at Blue River Valley. I mean, they were impressive. They ran Delaware out of the gym the other night. That's right. So. And I think Daleville may be kind of in a rebuild. They lost some pretty talented players, but Shenandoah plays hard. They have good guard play. Zane Mitchell's a really nice point guard for them. They're balanced. They don't have a lot of size, but they have a lot of different kids who can play different roles and kind of miss. Coach Ellsworth can mix and match with what they do. So. And then it's the theme, right? The rivalry. So there's a little bit of a county rivalry there with Blue River. And conference, I think they're still in the same conference. So we'll see how that one goes tomorrow night as well.
And as much as Frankton and Liberty is interesting to me, I am equally interested to see what happens with Anderson and Liberty Christian. Mm-hmm. What chances would you give Liberty Christian in this game? And if they win, what would that mean?
Got a lot of experience back. So does Liberty. They bring those 3 freshmen back that were so instrumental in them getting to the semi-state finals last year. Really, just a point away from maybe getting to the championship game. They're very talented. They're very athletic. Anderson is a little bit different. They've got a lot of size, and I'm not talking about Damian King. Normally, that would be who I would talk about in terms of size. He's 6'5", but he's going to play guard. He's an Indiana All-Star candidate, a strong candidate. He was on the junior team last year. They've got a couple 6'6" kids that are new to the team, and they didn't score a lot the other night against Pendleton, but they played some defense, so they blocked a lot of shots. So, and they won a pretty tight rebounding. I got to give Pendletonites a lot of credit for keeping the rebounding close the other night, but. Damian King, Colin Lewis, really, and of course Javon Warfield playing that 3. It's a really tough. That's a really experienced lineup coming back. As far as Liberty gave Anderson quite a run last year in the Madison County Championship game. If we remember, at Frankton, it was an electric atmosphere. It was a great game. I think Liberty can hang with them, and they want to. They don't necessarily go in there expecting Liberty to win, but this is more of a measuring stick type game. They want to see how if they get to the end of this game and they lose by 9 or 10, they got to feel pretty good about themselves. And they play a really tough schedule all year long. So this is one of those tough games, but it's not even going to be their toughest. They play a really tough schedule.
Yeah, I remember being at Elwood and Frankton, what it meant to play Anderson every time you played Anderson in anything.
Yeah, and right now they are the kings of the county. I mean, they won 3 straight Madison County championships and really have not been challenged much over that time span, except for that Liberty game and the championship game last year was pretty close. So yeah, that's who you want to measure yourself against is right now in the county is Anderson.
And as far as Anderson, just how good can this team be as far as competing for championships?
Well, they'll be the favorite again at county for sure. They'll have to beat Pendleton again. Pendleton's going to get another crack at them in that first round. So I would look for Coach Buck to have the Arabians ready to go that night. When you get down to sectional, that's another tough sectional. Mount Vernon's in that sectional. New Pal, and then of course the newly minted UConn recruit Braylon Mullins and Greenfield Central. They're ranked in the top 5 in the state. They're in that sectional. It's a deep. Of course, they got conference. There's a conference rival in that sectional with Richmond and Muncie Central. So it's a tough sectional. There are no nights off.
And the North Central Conference seems like it may have opened up a little with the loss of Flory. So.
Right. That conference is going to be. Anderson won it the year before, or 2 years before. Kokomo won it the last 2 years, I believe. We'll see if Anderson could do that. I know they don't have to make as many trips out west, which makes it a little easier with that conference because some of those Western teams leave in the conference. But
that was a long trip.
Yeah,
for a conference game.
For a conference game, right? And I can imagine being in Richmond and having to go to Lafayette a couple times this season. I'd be like, can we play those on a Friday and Saturday back to back and just get a hotel instead? Because that's a long drive. But I wandered off point a little bit.
We've all thought it.
Yeah, and I haven't quite got into too many of those. About Marion's always Muncie Central. They were played close with Wapahani for much of that game. Got off to a terrible start. Played it pretty close the rest of the way. So that's always going to be a challenge. It's kind of like that sectional. There's just no nights off. I mean, you might be better than a team, but there's those rivalries, those things you throw out the records and don't worry about that. Those kids want to beat. Muncie Central kids want to beat Anderson because their dads beat Anderson, or they're going to get revenge because Anderson beat their dads, or whatever the case may be. So
same with Marion and Kokomo.
And Richmond and all those. Sure.
Thanks once again to the Herald Bulletin's Rob Hunt for spending some time talking some basketball with the Central Indiana Sports Report. Also, thank you to Frankton head coach Brent Brobston, Oak Hill head coach Kevin Renbarger, and the Action Sports Network's Grant Shouse for spending some time with us, talking to you. Thanks most of all to you for listening. We are approaching 14,000 downloads, and we appreciate every single one of them. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, or follow us on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon Music. And now we are also at YouTube, so please go check us out there at Central Indiana Sports Report. Also, tell a friend about the Central Indiana Sports Report if you wouldn't mind. Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.